international judges' ballot, as well as Bonnie and myself. And then, given permitting time, we'll do a short round robin to provide Ivan some verbal feedback. So please help me welcome Ivan Conway.
Have you ever noticed how quickly a baby bounces back from failure? I remember when my son Stephen was first learning to walk. He would crawl and he'd get up onto a table or chair, and then when he would get up there, he would take a step or two, boom, he'd fall down. He'd get back up, he'd take another couple of steps, maybe 3, boom, he'd fall back down. They look around and they look at you, and Stephen would look at me with his big brown eyes, and I'd tell him, you can do it, you can do it. He'd get back up, boom, he'd fall down. Well, it seems like thousands of times, I'm sure it wasn't that many, but finally he learned how to walk. Isn't it amazing, though, that little children never beat themselves up about how many times they fall down? They just keep trying. It's almost like they have a God-given instinct that if you keep doing this, you're going to be just like mommy and daddy. You're going to be able to walk. You're going to be able to keep going. They have that instinct that just propels them forward, and finally it's manifested in a way that they can actually walk. And then when they start walking, they go everywhere. They're in cabinets, they're in the sink, you got to lock the doors, you got to put the gate up so they won't go up the steps. They'll go everywhere. One time I remember Stephen, I couldn't hear him for a little while. I said, what's going on with him? I'm looking around, he's in the bathroom. He's playing in the toilet. That's nasty. It's nasty. He looks up at me and I'm sure he's thinking, well, this is water and you bathed me in it last night. You said I was getting clean. What's the big deal? But it was awful, I thought. So I kind of scolded him a little bit, and he probably didn't understand what I was saying, but he knew I was mad. So he kind of had a couple tears. But then a few minutes later, isn't it amazing how quickly children forgive? I was still angry at him about what he had done, and he was ready to play. He forgot all about it. I've seen that happen thousands of times. He would take his food, and he'd be eating, and when he was tired of it, he'd just throw it on the floor. I told you not to do that. Or he would take his bottle of juice and just pour it out. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. We just went over this. But they do that all the time. Children do that. You get mad. You're still upset with them, but they forgot all about it. They've forgiven you, and they're ready to play. What I think is so amazing, could it be that children are exhibiting the behaviors that Christ talked about? Remember in the Bible, in Mark, when the parents wanted to bring the little children to Jesus, and they said, no, we don't want that to happen. And Jesus said, no. He was displeased. He said, suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of heaven. That amazing ability to forgive, and that God-like confidence that they can do anything. That's what I believe he was talking about. The childlike faith that they have. They just believe. They don't have to have all the statistics, the data to go forward and to actually believe that something is true. These are the two things that I think are so important for us to realize our maximum potential. We have to be able to have the ability to have that supreme confidence that if we do fall down, we're going to be able to get back up. And let's face it, every single day we get knocked down, either by something that we did, a mistake that we made, or by something somebody else did. Maybe it was intentional, maybe it was not intentional, but we're always falling down. And you're never going to be able to realize your full potential unless you keep getting back up. The statement that Rome wasn't built in a day is so true. Success is not some humongous leap and bound, and then we make this great success. It's every day, little tiny steps that we make, and we have to get up every single day. You may have heard Willie Jolly say that if you do get knocked down, make sure that you land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. That is so true. We've got to be able to keep going. We've got to be able to look forward. We've got to be able to bounce back from all the things that life throws at us. It's so important. Well, if that's the key to become like a little child, to have that amazing resiliency and to have that God-like forgiveness and to keep going no matter how many times you try to walk and you fall down, what is that state? Is there some scientific term or some scientific phrase that we can look at and say, that's what we're trying to attain? Because it's hard to hit a target if you can't even see it. Fortunately for us, science has come up with something called brain waves. And I was researching this and I was amazed. There are 5 different categories of brain waves. The highest brain wave and the fastest is called gamma. Gamma is where professors and people that are, they say, geniuses, and when you and I, when we have brilliant ideas and we're thinking about all these things, our brain waves are extremely fast. The next stage is called beta. That's where we are right now. That's where most people are when they're in awakened consciousness. They're in beta. That's where logical, we communicate, and we think about this and that. In fact, they say if you don't have enough beta brain waves, you can go into severe depression. The next state that they talk about is alpha. It's a little bit more relaxed. Prayer, meditation, you can come up with some things that are somewhat creative there. Theta, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit more, is where you have supreme creativity. You're able to forgive, you'll be able to have great resiliency, and that's what we're going to talk about in just a second. And then, of course, there's delta. That's where you're sleeping. And when you notice when babies are first born, they say, well, their brain waves are really slow and they're mostly in delta. In delta, you go see a newborn, whether it's your niece, a friend, child. So where's the baby? So the baby's asleep. And then they'll wake up, they'll be crying. And you say, oh, let's go see the baby. Get fed, boom, they're back to sleep. They're mostly in delta. But here's the beautiful part. From about 18 months to 6 years old, children are in theta. And in theta, that's where they forgive just like that. They're ready to play, you're still mad at them. That's where they're learning to walk and talk, and they fall down thousands of times. They never beat themselves up. They never analyze and say, oh my God, I should have been able to do that the first time. At least by the 10th time, and I still can't walk. They keep going. They keep going. That's where we have to be. We have to be in a state of constant resiliency, where we can get knocked down and we can get back up. We have to be in a state where we can forgive, most importantly, ourselves for whatever mistakes we've made. And of course, we have to be able to forgive our fellow man. We have to be able to let things go to reach our full potential. This theta state is where all that happens. It's a very slow, relaxed brain wave. It's something that we go into every single night. When you're walking around in beta, you get a little relaxed, you're tired, you're sleepy, then the next thing you know, you go off to sleep. You go into delta. But before you go into delta, just for a few minutes, you're in theta, that dream-like quality that you have. That's where we have to be in order to manifest this resiliency. We need to go there all the time as much as we can. This summer, I had an opportunity to really explore this. My son hadn't been by to see me in a while. I was kind of a little hot with him. Kind of a little really bad. And he didn't come by. Finally, he did come by, and he told me that he hadn't come by because he had been sick. I was like, sick? Well, why didn't you come tell me or call me or something? He came by on a Sunday. He told me on that Thursday he was so sick that his left arm felt like it was going to explode. I'm like, Philip, it's heart attack sign. He says, yeah, I felt like I was really going to die. I was over, his friend's name is over Jeremy's, and it kept hurting and hurting and went on for hours and hours and hours. And finally what I did was, I said, yeah, let's just go in and go to the emergency room. So on the way to the emergency room, he started feeling better. By the time they got to the hospital, he decided he didn't need to go in. Typical man. So he didn't ever go in the hospital. So I was just sitting there, I said, Philip, you can't do that. You need to go get checked out. He said, well, I will, but I just started my job and my insurance doesn't kick in for 90 days and I'm going to go in 90 days. I'm saying, well, this is real important. You may not have 90 days. You need to get that checked out like pronto. Oh, I'm okay. I'm not hurting right now. So I thought about it. He left. He had my grandson over there, Alexander, and we played and talked, and so he left. So that night I was trying to just flush out all the animosity I had for him not coming by and not showing up like I thought he was going to. And I just had to go in to have some forgiveness for him. And I just went into my Theta state, you know, with like just a deep breath and just relaxing and just imagining that everything was going to be okay. That night I drifted off to sleep about 10:30. I woke up, bam, 2 o'clock. It's just like it was somebody shouting at me, Philip needs to go to the doctor. And I was like, oh my God. So I couldn't hardly wait for the clock to strike 5 because I know he gets up at 5. I called him up. I said, Philip, you got to go to the doctor. I just woke up at 2 o'clock this morning. I can't hardly sleep. You got to go to the doctor. And he says, I don't feel fine. I'm not going to the doctor. I said, you got to go. Dad, I already told you I don't have any insurance. I said, I'll pay for it. Don't worry about that. This is your life we're talking about. No, don't need to do it. Not going to put you in that kind of debt. You don't need that. Nothing need to happen. I'm like, oh, goodness. This goes on for about 3 or 4 times. Then I call him back like the 5th time trying to convince him to go to the doctor, go straight to voicemail. So now I don't even have a communication because I know he turned his phone off. He doesn't want to hear about it anymore. So I called his brother, Stephen, and I said, hey, Stephen, maybe you can get to him. Same thing, straight to voicemail. So I went into my relaxed state again and just said, thanks for all the things I could think of. You know, hey, it's in your hands, God. Maybe you work it out. I was on my way to lunch. Phone rings. It's Philip. Okay. I'm going to go to the doctor. You guys are just bugging me to death. So we meet over at Care Now. And he walks in, and lo and behold, who's there? His friend's girlfriend is behind the counter. And he tells her what he's been going through. And she says, well, there's no sense in you checking in here. What you need to do is just let me check your vitals. And if they're really bad, then I'm just going to send you to the hospital anyway. So she said, okay. His blood pressure was 220 over 110. She said, you need to go to the hospital immediately. We went over to Charlton Methodist. He walked in the emergency room. There's like 70 people there, packed to the walls. I'm like, oh man, he's never going to get through. I tell the nurse about the situation. She said, okay, have a seat. We go have a seat. Then his arm starts just hurting again. The left arm starts really throbbing. So I go back up there, tell her. It's like only 5 minutes. It's like, we got there at 5 after 6. I tell her the situation. She opens the door. When I go back and sit down, she opens the door and she calls him. She says, Phil Conway. They go back there. He's talking to the nurse. She takes his blood pressure. By this time, it's like 240 over 120. They're thinking like, this guy's about to have a heart attack. So the nurse, she gets like ashen face. She starts turning around. She says, okay, I don't want you to talk. I don't want you to say anything. You just sit there. We're going to do this blood pressure again. She did it again. It was still bad. It's like 220 over 110. So they started putting stuff on his heart. Got him checked back into the back of the hospital. Doctors came in. They started giving him medication. They got his blood pressure down. So, like, you know, we got there at 6. It's like 1 o'clock. They've been doing all this. They finally got his blood pressure down to about 150 over 90. And I said, okay, I got to go get some sleep. So he said, I said, Philip, you're in a good place. You're with doctors. They'll be able to help you. I went home. And I just prayed and just tried to get in a relaxed state, just thinking everything's going to be okay. And I drifted off to sleep. When I woke up in the morning, I had like total peace, like everything was fine. I hadn't talked to him or anything, but I just felt like everything was going to be okay. I didn't call him or anything. Then about noon, I did call at lunchtime. And sure enough, he was fine. The doctors had got his blood pressure down. They'd given him some medication. He hadn't had a heart attack. Everything was great. The reason I'm telling you this story is that took me through a lot of different emotional states. And by having the knowledge that Theta can bring you back from anything that you go through, can give you that resiliency that each of us need every single day, it's something that I would like to challenge each and every one of you to do. to practice going into Theta. Look it up in Google. You can listen to music. It can bring you into that state. And if you do, I promise you that your objectives and your obstacles will almost evaporate. And I believe you'll be able to accomplish the highest one of your goals and your objectives. Madam Councilman.
Would be to have a quick round robin, about 15, or just a few words, just a sentence or two for Ivan. Let's start with Jamie.
Absolutely.